Today, we are diving into the absolutely incredible story of Gaurav Tiwari. This is a guy who traded the cockpit of a commercial airplane for the haunted ruins of India, and in the process, he basically pioneered a scientific approach to paranormal investigation in a country that's just steeped in ancient beliefs.
Now, this isn't just some deep philosophical question, right? It's literally the story of Gaurav Tiwari's life. Here was a pilot, a man of physics, of checklists, of hard science, who came face to face with something that just defied all of his training. His journey really explores that fascinating and, let's be honest, sometimes terrifying line between logic and the things we just can't explain.
So before he was ever known as a ghost hunter, Gaurav Tiwari was a pilot in training, a man of logic, procedure, and facts. And that background is exactly what makes his sudden jump into the paranormal so compelling. You see, this wasn't some quest for belief. It was a desperate search for answers.
So how in the world does a pilot become a ghost hunter? Well, it all starts not in some ancient, spooky fort in India, but in a totally modern American apartment.
You have to understand, Gaurav's foundation was pure skepticism. He grew up in a family of non-believers, and for him, ghost stories were just that. Stories. Fun, but not real. But, like a lot of us, he still had that little spark in the back of his mind. That little, what if?
And this is where everything changes. While he's living in this Florida apartment, training to be a pilot, his rational, ordered world was about to be challenged, not by a story he read, but by a direct, personal, and frankly weird experience.
And here's the kicker. The turning point wasn't just that he experienced something strange. It was that everyone in the apartment did. I mean, it's one thing to question your own mind, right? To think, am I just imagining things? But it's a whole different story when 4 other people are seeing and hearing the exact same unexplainable stuff. This is what pushed him past simple curiosity. He now had to find answers.
So armed with his brand new purpose, Gaurav returns to India. His idea was to bring a scientific, methodical approach to these mysteries. But he found out real quick that investigating the paranormal in India wasn't just difficult, it was a massive cultural battle. This quote from Gaurav himself just cuts right to the heart of the problem. He shows up with all this scientific equipment, meters and cameras, but people saw him as a tantric, a kind of ritual practitioner, sometimes even associated with sorcery. The gap between what he was actually doing and what people thought he was doing was just enormous. And the resistance he faced was immediate, and it came from all sides. The public straight up ridiculed him. His own family, his fellow non-believers, they weren't convinced either. He was basically forced to launch this massive public education campaign on news channels just to get people to understand his scientific goals. Okay, so now let's dive into one of his most famous investigations, the Kuldhara ruins. This is a place that is absolutely shrouded in a terrifying local legend. I mean, just imagine this. 84 villages, completely empty. The story goes that they were all abandoned in a single night, and a curse was left behind to make sure no one ever came back. It is the perfect setting for a ghost story, and an even more perfect test for Gaurav's team.
And here you can see his scientific approach in action. This was never about superstition for him, it was all about data. He brought in technology like infrared cameras and EMF detectors. Those are devices that measure spikes in electromagnetic fields, which some paranormal researchers believe can signal a spirit's presence. He was literally trying to quantify the unexplainable.
But the data they collected was, well, it was bizarre. Their meters recorded these sudden, huge, unexplained spikes in energy. Team members clearly heard their own names being whispered by a voice that wasn't there. And then, get this, footage from over 30 cameras was somehow found completely blank. And on a return trip, their equipment seemed to be directly attacked, making these weird sounds just as the EMF meters went absolutely wild. They went in looking for data and came back with an even deeper mystery.
Next up, the legendary Bhangarh Fort. This is a place so notoriously haunted that the government of India actually forbids anyone from entering after dark. But Gaurav's team wasn't just there to find ghosts. They were also there to find the truth, whatever it was. You see, the fort is wrapped in these 2 incredibly powerful legends. One about a holy man's curse, the other about a sorcerer's dying spell. These stories are the very bedrock of its terrifying reputation.
But here's where Gaurav's scientific skepticism really comes in. His team actually found logical explanations for a lot of the spooky reports. There's matrixing. That's the mind's tendency to see human shapes in the dark, in bushes and pillars. There were the sounds of wild animals from a nearby nature reserve. And honestly, the place is just inherently creepy, which can play tricks on your mind. It really shows their commitment to debunking, not just blindly believing.
So, investigating these famous haunted places is one thing, but the everyday logistics, the simple act of doing this work in India, well, that presented a whole other set of incredible challenges.
I mean, just think about the difference for a second. In the US, you can basically buy paranormal gear off the shelf. In India, Gaurav had to import everything and pay these huge taxes. Then you add to that these remote locations with no electricity and a culture where people are often terrified to even talk about their experiences for fear of being shamed. The challenges were just immense.
And yet, despite all of this, he and his team pushed forward. Their dedication was just incredible. And they were always focused on one single thing: finding credible, verifiable evidence.
And this is what they consider their best piece of evidence. It's a Class A EVP. That stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon. And Class A means the recording is crystal clear, you don't have to guess what it's saying. During an investigation in Mumbai, their equipment recorded a child's voice speaking these words in Marathi, a direct, totally unambiguous response to one of their questions.
You see, ultimately, Gaurav's work was about so much more than just collecting evidence. It was about changing the entire conversation around the paranormal in India.
A huge part of their mission was replacing fear with facts. You have this common belief that all spirits are demonic or that they exist only to possess people, and that creates so much terror. Gaurav's team worked to educate people, to show that the reality, whatever it might be, was way more nuanced and a lot less threatening than the folklore made it out to be.
So, in the endgame was never really about proving ghosts exist. It was about replacing terror with curiosity. It was about empowering a whole new generation in India to ask critical questions about the unknown, rather than just being afraid of it.
Gaurav Tiwari's story leaves us with a really fascinating question. As our scientific tools get more and more powerful, will they finally close the book on these ancient mysteries, or will they just open up a brand new chapter, revealing how much more there's left for us to explore?